Hi, everybody. It's Saturday night, Sunday morning, depending on where you are in the world, and we got a little situation happening here. I got the red lights going for the alarm, and so does Drudge with all of his headlines here, screaming about the Iranian response, retaliation to Israel. As we know, I believe April the 1st, Israel killed an Iranian general, either right at or outside of an Iranian consulate in in Syria, and people had been waiting the retaliation. Now, if you watch this channel a few shows ago, I did say Iran has been very canny in the past in when they make moves like this. And right now we have a situation in the world where Israel, amazingly enough, has made themselves out to look like an aggressor in the way that they've handled the fighting against Hamas in Gaza after the big hostage taking, which should have had an outpouring support of Israel. But even then, there was it displayed how worldwide public opinion had changed a lot, or had been, some say, altered a lot by pretty propaganda on TikTok to uh, to justify the hostage taking against Israel. And then Israel certainly, they did not learn the lesson that the United States always has to learn when it's overseas fighting wars in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever. Any kind of collateral damage you do, the media has a field day with, and it's always portrayed as if the armies don't care about civilians, and certainly there's been a huge death toll. Some would say indiscriminate in the way Israel has gone in to Gaza, justified or not. So we have Israel that's on their back foot. So I posited that whatever retaliation would have to be done by Iran in a way not to make Israel look like the victim again. And really, I would say, and this is still ongoing, despite all of the screaming headlines we have here, and despite some unprecedented aspects of this strike, and there are, and they do, it is pointed out here, this is apparently the first time Iran has launched an attack from its own soil directly against Israel. That is opposed to its proxies that now surround Israel. You know, we have Hamas that has taken over part of the Palestinian Authority, launched those hostage strikes in the south. We have Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon, and we have Iran that, you know, operates quite openly in Syria, and they made it clear basically they're controlling the Houthis that are trying to disrupt shipping in the Red Sea. And this all comes at a time when the younger people, the voting populace of the Western democracies that fund Israel, that fund all these big wars, that support them also with men and arms, with the ships in the Mediterranean Sea, that the voting populace of these countries are opposed to Israel. It's quite an extraordinary situation. So it would make Iran think that perhaps maybe they can be a little more aggressive, and they have, in the fact that they have launched these strikes from their own soil. However, I would still guess these are a lot of drone strikes. I haven't heard any word of casualties. I would expect that these strikes, they certainly would be designed to demonstrate proportionality, to a revenge strike, to strike back at against what Israel has done, but not designed for mass casualties. Like, you wouldn't put chemical weapons on these. You wouldn't aim for mass casualties. Again, you already have Israel being viewed as the aggressor in these, rightly or wrongly, in the situation. So you wouldn't want to take that away from them. I know, you see people on social media talking about, oh, Iran has nukes and they might nuke it, and they wouldn't do that because they're not going to snatch their position of they're in the superior position now because Israel has been under such great pressure. Even the United States, which came out initially with a very doctrinaire position from President Biden, supporting Israel completely and giving them a lot of money, despite domestic opposition to that. Biden has had to kind of flip-flop and demand peace and change his position. It is an election year after all. And we have Trump. So if you follow my channel, and I have gotten over 1,000 new subscribers in the past few weeks, you will know, and I've talked about, I've been trying to promote my channel, but see, you can't promote it. You can't do like a paid promotion through YouTube if you mention any presidential candidates. Even if it's completely nonpartisan, which I try to be, trying to look in the context of things here. So even if I mention Biden or Trump in any way, it is immediately tagged as an election advertisement. You can't even mention politics without it being assumed to be partisan in the United States now. So I specifically made one the other day about O.J. Simpson's death, and I was super careful not to mention anything about politics. But I did mention abortion. You cannot say the word abortion, otherwise it's tagged as you're giving people health care advice. And I didn't say anything about that. I just said the concept of liberty, how Americans feel about abortion rights, not whether they should have them or whether it's good or bad. But it's very, this is a funny thing for Americans because we think of the free press and we sort of think of platforms, these media platforms, as part of the media. So it seems like you should be able to express any opinion, but that's not the case. And to be fair, these platforms are different than the traditional media because it allows just any old person to get on there and express their opinion. And apparently that's dangerous. So that's where we are right now. Excuse me. I'm choking on my own bile here. It does get kind of frustrating to get these channels going, but as they say, the most important thing is to just work on the content, work on your presentation, and make it, give people something interesting, give them an opinion, and the people will come, and that has happened. So back to politics. So I've already mentioned Biden and Trump, and so this cannot be promoted. Might even be, some people have theorized, shadow banned if it's one political view or another. I wanted to mention this. I don't think this was actually on Drudge, although usually any mention of Drudge in another news report makes it a headline that's presented to you on the Drudge report page. Trump must be one to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge after looking at Drudge headlines. We've talked about this before. This is because Drudge traditionally was seen as promoting kind of right-wing talking points all the way back to the late 90s when he forced the media to cover the Monica Lewinsky scandal with Clinton, which they just kind of decided that was not going to be in the press. But Drudge pushed that forward and made it a story. So in the last, in 2016, he didn't really point up a lot of stories about how the crazy things Trump said or did. And in 2020, and certainly this time around in 2024, he is really putting out a lot of the left-wingers' stories about crazy things, even if they're false. Something like the bloodbath story that wasn't true, that said Trump was predicting a bloodbath if he was elected, if he was not elected, but he was referring to car. The car industry, if the car industry was going to undergo a bloodbath, but the rest of the media just decided to kind of trick people. And it's funny that they would do that because there are lots of other times Trump did say bloodbath and even stuff that was worse. So it shows the kind of hysterical nature we get into sometimes, where the media, which is supposed to be impartial, is actually feels like they have to mold the news to kind of trick or mold the voting populace. So this time around, there are a lot tougher headlines about Trump on Drudge. Here's a guy. This was a little while back, and I forgot to cover this, but it's a good article. The guy who's correctly predicted presidents since 1984, and why I don't expect Donald Trump to thank me in unprecedented 2024. The whole setup of this article is a little disingenuous because this guy's not saying that he thinks Trump will win, but he's pondering it, and it doesn't look good for Trump. And these points, I think this concept here, we see here the keys to the White House. So there's 13 true or false statements. If 6 or more are false, then the incumbent is set to lose the next election. And these are things we have known since the 1980s. Throughout my life, these have been pretty clear. You know, is the economy good? Is there social unrest? Is there a big scandal? People tend to stick with the incumbent if there are no big fractious things happening in the world. And if there's no, if the makeup of the Congress is a certain way, if there's no, I think if somewhere in say there's no significant third-party challenge, see, because that can cut into a few states, and all it takes is losing a couple states, you lose those electoral votes, and that could flip an election. So still probably at this point, we're very far out from the election. And this guy who's so smart to predict all of these, the last election, he did not make a prediction until September, which is just about a month before the election date. And this time he hasn't made a prediction, but we have these 13 points we can look to. And I would say some of these actually look not good for Biden. You know, we do have a third-party challenge with RFK that is thought to cut into Biden's support. Some polls have shown that in the just 3 or 4 competitive states. Right, we covered that just a few days ago. You know, we have, I think we'll look at an article a little bit later here. We have high gas prices in the United States, even though the economy is strong. Inflation is strong too. That impacts people, everyday people, voters. And we do have a lot of fears for foreign policies and wars. But then on the other hand, you could say the way Trump is saying he's going to cut loose a lot of our allies, perhaps, or not be as engaged in the world, or support Russia over Ukraine, even possibly, that might cause people to think twice about Trump. And certainly so far, we've major foreign policy or military successes. Not really. Charismatic incumbent. Certainly that's not Biden. In fact, When you watch videos of them, you fear for senility. And certainly Trump is charismatic in his way. If that appeals to you, if it doesn't appeal to you, it doesn't. But there's something there. There's some sort of charisma. I don't know. And let's go on to this. So I guess just yesterday, now Biden beating Trump in the majority of polls. And I do think there has been we have this situation around the world with many foreign ruptures and problems. And in the United States, we see those as all of our problems. The voting populace does. I know sometimes I talk to foreigners, people from other countries, and they're like, well, Americans are so concerned by all these things happening in every country. Well, that's because we pay to fix them and we have our military everywhere. And it could be that the media has been publicizing a lot of the ways Trump has seemed to be dismissive of NATO and our allies and the present world order that the United States has maintained through its money and its might. Perhaps that's causing people to think twice. And if the Democrats are lucky enough and they can time some convictions for Trump right before the election, polls show that'll cut into him too. And finally, this AI gone wild. Is this K-drama? No, it's South Korea's election night. So they have these crazy AI. I don't know what's happening to the media. I remember in the late 90s going into back to the United States after spending some time away, and you hear the news. So CBS Evening News, there's a story, and in the background of the story, you hear some music dun, 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 during the story itself. Now they do that through all the stories. They have music all the time. And I thought, what a weird thing that you go back and watch any CBS broadcast from the 80s, the 70s, a lot on YouTube. They didn't have thumping music under the news. It's amazing how the news has had to degenerate into entertaining like this. And I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's inevitable because of what the internet has done and how any old guy like me can come on and present himself as an analyst, although I am and have been, but they don't know that. You don't know that. So times are changing. Civil War movie making a lot of money. Okay. What else do we have here? Yeah, okay, well, this is the economy. Economy's strong, apparently, but inflation is high. So again, despite what the media tells people of how wonderful inflation is, the economy is, and that there was a phrase the media created to use in unison called the vibe economy. That was, I think, last December. And it was to explain to people that if they thought that inflation was too high or prices were bad, they were mistaken. They were confused. Just the vibe economy. It's just what everybody says. But this article does acknowledge that when gas is at all-time high record levels and groceries and things are high, normal people see that as not a good sign. And an incumbent is going to pay for that in votes. Excuse me. But I think most people and investors, you see the people taking their money out of the market, big investors, 2/3 of their cash, 2/3 of their money sitting in cash and not the markets, because we're way, way, way overdue for a big market correction. The U.S. has been spending $1 trillion a year to prop up markets in terms of its spending. It's adding 100. It's adding a trillion. I think every 100 days to the national debt. And all the presidents from Bush, Obama, Trump, now Biden have been in on this spending spree, adding this 34 trillion, and they've sort of forestalled any kind of big downturn since about 2008, 2009 with the mortgage crisis. Usually we have one of those towards the end of every decade, at least every 10 years. We're way past due for one of those, and people are betting on that. Probably will not happen before the election unless Biden is really is really unlucky, because have an understanding with the U.S. Federal Reserve to sort of game the rates to make sure no recession starts this year before the election. It's another thing another word you're not allowed to mention, but they in this whole article, they talk about some people just in Canada perhaps misusing their assisted, whatever, but people in Canada misusing this service. In Canada, so like autistic people, I read this, I didn't have to subscribe before, but misusing this to commit suicide. Oh, there I said it. And but I don't know, I think, for dogs, we put dogs to sleep when it's horrible. I don't know if we shouldn't, or a human doesn't. I think as a human, I would like to have that option. Certainly we have enough bureaucracy that we could figure out a way to regulate that and make sure that, depressed people are not just doing it because they feel bad. Although I know, depression is a real thing, a crippling thing. It's not just feeling bad, but if you've ever been with someone who has a broken body, or your own body is broken and decaying, and then you hear about people just feeling bad, like, why did you get rid of yourself? Well, they did it because they felt bad. Must be real to them, but stabbing rampage. So I'll just say it for all of my conservative neighbors where I grew up. Let's just ban all knives. But you probably shouldn't say that, or it would give them ideas. The government, that is. AI girlfriends sleeping with robots. Yeah, that's going to be the future, I believe. And finally, let's have something that's a little more. I can't see this. Okay. I love these, and if I had the time and the money and the inclination, I like the concept of this. I'd like to get an $850 Millennium Falcon. That's not a Millennium Falcon. But yes. I think Legos are fun. That's I try to end this on a pithy note, exciting, interesting, but all I could say is Legos are fun. And before we go, I just wanted to mention my book. Hold on, here it is. Disillusioned by the promises of the modern world, young people make their way to Bangkok and then on to the furthest places they can find. There are still unknown places. And I just heard my book is now available at Kinokuniya branches at M Quarter, Central World, and Siam Paragon. I really wanted them to carry it, and it's in literature, which is cool. So this is another dream come true for me. Read it and let me know what you think, please. Thanks. So like and subscribe to this channel, tweet it out. I'm trying to offer a little bit of peace in this world that tries to get you really excited about all the news items. And this year's going to be a big year for that, with all the wars going on in the world, and the elections coming up in the United States, which, like it or not, they're going to impact your country overseas one way or another, because finally the U.S. You see, in the U.S., we always complain that both parties are basically the same, by the Republicans and the Democrats, even though the media likes to scream from the rooftops it's terrible. And that's sort of the way. We have a bureaucracy, we have a diplomatic corps, we have long-standing things that the U.S. is doing in the world, and those remain the same no matter who the president is. But this time, one of the candidates really wants to change something in terms of the United States engagement with the world, and that's Trump. So this is going to be an exciting year. Please stay tuned and come back to the channel, and we'll talk more about the news and see if we can add some context and commentary to it. Bye-bye.